Namaste and hello to everybody. We are studying Calcarea Carb from Dr. N.M. Choudhury's Materia Medica, and in part 1 we've already covered many things like the general points related to Calcarea, which were about the ossification, about scrofula, about its appetite, skin, susceptibility to cold, and especially about the leukophlegmatic constitution. We also discussed what is the meaning of a constitutional remedy, and we discussed the symptoms related to the mind and the head of the remedy, right? Now we are going ahead to look at many other aspects of this remedy, beautiful aspects, and one important, very important sphere which we are going to cover in this video will be about the stomach and abdomen related symptoms of Calcarea Carb. So let's get started. Okay, so we're going to start with the ailments of eye, ear, and nose. So we're going to start with these because Dr. N.M. Choudhury himself talks about these after mind and head. As I've told you, we have already covered the mind and head related symptoms of Calcarea Carb in part 1, including the central points of Calcarea, which are very important to Calcarea, like ossification, like skin, etc. Okay, so let's start with the eye. So in eye, Dr. N.M. Choudhury mentions this word keratitis under the eye symptoms of Calcarea Carb, which actually mean the inflammation of the cornea of eye. Alright, you will understand this better if you know the anatomy of eye. So basically, this is our eye, right? So this central portion is actually cornea, meaning when you see it from the side, this portion which is actually curved like this, right? That portion, the convex portion, is actually cornea. It is transparent. Okay, and now here if you see it from the side, suppose this is the cornea, then there is a continuation of cornea, right, from here and here. So these parts are actually white in color and these are the sclera. So this is the sclera basically. So over here if you see, this part is cornea and the white portion that we haven't drawn actually is the sclera of the eye. Right, this if you know the anatomy, this is actually the pupil. These two are iris, and here there are ciliary processes, and actually here lies the lens, right? The lens lies over here somewhat like this, and these are the ciliary processes which connect. And this is the iris, this is the pupil, this is the cornea, the spherical portion, okay, the convex portion. So the light goes in through the cornea and then it reaches the lens. So this is the cornea. Now what is keratitis? Keratitis is the inflammation. See, itis means inflammation, and inflammation of cornea is called as keratitis. Okay, so this is from the front. If you see the cornea, it will look like this. And what is this yellow color thing that I have drawn? So this is not present in the normal eye, okay, this yellow thing. It is actually pus. So see over here what Dr. N.M. Choudhury says, in keratitis these patients will have great photophobia. Photophobia meaning, phobia means fear. We all know phobia means fear. Photo means light. So they have fear of light. So basically their eyes cannot tolerate light. So that will be there. Stinging pain in the eyes aggravated by candle lights. Aggravated by candle lights again because there is photophobia. And stinging pain means what? Stinging means whenever a bee stings you, whenever a bee bites you, what is the kind of pain that you feel? The same pain is called as stinging pain. Okay, morning agglutination of lids, meaning in the morning when they wake up there will be agglutination, their lids will stick onto each other and they won't open, the eyes won't open because of that very easily. And then numerous vesicles with pus on cornea. This is what is. Okay, there will be numerous vesicles, eruptions with pus on cornea. So there will be pus on the cornea because there is inflammation of the cornea, and in future there will be first it starts with inflammation, but later on there is ulcer formation, meaning there is breakage in the epithelium, meaning that there is breakage in the there is discontinuity of this cornea, right? And that will lead to formation of ulcer which will contain pus. So this is what is an important point related to the eye which Dr. N.M. Choudhury puts forward. Okay, there is keratitis, there is pus in the cornea, there is photophobia. Okay, then he goes to conjunctiva which is inflamed, that is again conjunctivitis. So anytime you put on itis, it is always inflammation. So conjunctiva's inflammation is called as conjunctivitis. It looks somewhat like this. The lids will be swollen, red, painful, and itching. Itching will also be there in the lids. There can be cataract. Okay, cataract basically means opacification of lens. So I told you this structure over here is called as lens, right? So when this lens, actually it should be transparent only, right? Because light needs to pass through it and reach the retina, and that is how image is formed. If it is not transparent, how will the image be formed, right? But cataract is a disease, or it is a disorder in which the lens gets opacified, means the lens will opacify, okay? It will not be transparent anymore. That will be there, okay? And then chronic dilatation of pupil can also be there. Now let's go to the eye and the ear and nose symptoms, and let's see what is the similarity of it with eye symptoms, because that will help us remember it. If we find some similarity, it can help us remember, right? Remember better. So in ear and nose, there are many similarities. That is why I have written them side by side, right? So in ear, there is thickening of tympanum. Okay, tympanum is the eardrum and it gets thickened. In the same way, in nose, the NM Choudhuri says that there is the wings of the nose get thickened. So there is thickening in both of them. Then there is mucopurulent otorial meaning from the ear. Okay, mucopurulent otorial discharge due to ulceration. So see, even the cornea was ulcered. Now there is ulceration even in the ear. And along with that, there is mucopurulent discharge. Purulent means again pus, related to pus. Always anything related to pus is called as purulent. Okay, that means there is some infection which is giving rise to pus formation. So mucopurulent otorial discharge will take place due to ulceration. In the nose also, there is offensive discharge, which is both purulent and bloody. Okay, so here also there is pus kind of discharge. It is offensive and it is bloody. Here also there is pus kind of discharge, and here also there is pus, and here also there is ulceration. Okay, we need to remember that. And keratitis is also bacterial in origin. It can also be viral or fungal in origin. So that's how it is, okay? And then we go to ear again. So there is defective hearing, perversion of hearing, perversion. So there is not normal hearing. मतलब ऐसे नहीं है कि there is no hearing. मतलब they are not able to hear and they are completely deaf. But there is perversion. So it can be ringing. They can hear ringing in either ears. They can hear buzzing, singing, hissing, and thundering noise. Anything like it is not happening in reality, but they can hear it. And chronic nasal catarrh is there. So this is also there. Polypus of nose and polyp in nose. Polypus of ear and polyp in nose. So both of them have polyp as well. Isn't it very easy to remember because of the similarities that they all have? We've seen in the eye also there is ulcer formation, pus formation, and inflammation, and opacification. And here also there is thickening. Opacification is also a type of thickening only. So there's thickening. Then there is ulcer. And then there is discharge, which is purulent. Okay. And polyp is also present in all three. So let's move ahead to the stomach and abdomen related symptoms of Calcarea Carb, which are very, very important because this is a central thing to Calcarea Carb. There is constant tendency to diarrhea. Okay, now let me tell you the reason of this. Obviously, Dr. NM Choudhuri does not talk about it. I want to add a little bit of pathophysiology in these videos, because that's very important when we learn MM and the pathophysiology parallelly. We understand better and we remember better. So let's see, why is there tendency to diarrhea in Calcarea Carb, right? So as I've already told you many times during the part 1 of this remedy, Calcarea Carb from Dr. NM Choudhury's Materia Medica, we've talked about this, that there is malabsorption in this remedy, right? There is malabsorption in this remedy. This is a very important part of Calcarea Carb. There is malabsorption. Now, what is malabsorption actually? So if there is diminished digestion or diminished absorption of major nutrients, then we call it as malabsorption. Now, over here, what happens? Over here, actually, not only over here, but generally only what happens is malabsorption usually takes place of fat. Why? Why is only fat not majorly absorbed? Because it is the most calorie dense nutrient. Okay, macronutrient. So it is the most calorie dense macronutrient, because of which fat will not get absorbed, will not get digested easily as compared to other nutrients. Okay, other nutrients are also not getting absorbed, other major nutrients, but especially fat. So now, if this is happening, then why is it important? Why are we studying about it? So because fat malabsorption will give rise to steatoria. Okay, steatoria takes place. Now, what is steatoria? In steatoria, the most common symptom is actually diarrhea. Okay, and that's why we were seeing that there is tendency to diarrhea in Calcarea Carb. Okay, so this diarrhea takes place. Now, actually, how does this happen? If you go and see, what happens is, you know that your food gets majorly absorbed in the small intestine, right? Small intestine is the place where our food gets absorbed, our nutrients get absorbed, and in colon majorly water gets absorbed, right? So now what happened in this case, that the fat did not get absorbed in small intestine. Okay, all major nutrients did not get absorbed, and especially fat did not get absorbed in the small intestine. The food moved ahead. Food meaning what? The kind that had come from the stomach, and bile juice was added to it, and the whole thing then moved from the small intestine to the colon. And now when it moved to the colon, the unabsorbed fat which was there also moved to colon, right? What happened now in colon is that fat, because there is more fat, okay, than normally it should be, there will be more osmotic load on the colon, and because of that there will be more water which will be drawn from colon's epithelial cells. So colon, the cells that colon has will actually put in more water into the lumen of the intestine, the large intestine. Okay, these cells will put in more water because now here more fat is present. So to neutralize the osmotic load, more water will be poured into the lumen, which will finally come out through the rectum, through the stools, and more watery stools which will be there are called as now, the presentation is called as diarrhea. Okay, that is why Calcarea Carb has tendency to diarrhea. So basically what happened is, this patient has malabsorption, that is diminished digestion or diminished absorption of major nutrients. Now one of the major nutrients is fat. Why is it that fat is only not majorly absorbed? Because it is the most calorie dense macronutrient. That will give rise to steatoria. Steatoria means what? There will be a lot of diarrhea. What happens is that in the small intestine normally the fat should get absorbed, but it is not getting absorbed, and that is why it moves ahead into the colon. The unabsorbed fat moves ahead into the colon. And what happens in colon is that because there is more fat, there is osmotic load in the colon. That means what happens is this is the intestinal wall, large intestinal wall, the cells are there. Okay, now these cells will release more water into the lumen because there is more fat, and that will finally give rise to watery stools. That is what, nothing but what we call as diarrhea. Okay, so that is how the malabsorption, which is so central to Calcarea Carb, which we talked about in part 1, we talked about it when we talked about ossification, right? All of that is actually giving rise to the diarrhea as well. That is how everything in Calcarea Carb is pathophysiologically also connected. It is not that this diarrhea is coming out of somewhere else only. There is a relation, a logical relation to it as well. Okay, so now let's see what happens is, now studying about the diarrhea, we need to see why was the diarrhea caused. First of all, now we understood about the pathophysiological reason of the diarrhea, but there are some stimulants. Okay, there are some things which will stimulate your vital force to cause the diarrhea. So what are those little reasons which will be like an opportunity for the patient to the body of the patient to cause diarrhea? Okay, then we'll study the stools. How are the stools? What is the concomitant symptom? Okay, so let's start. So when we talk about the ailments from, there is diarrhea during dentition. We saw this picture when we were talking about the Calcarea Carb baby. So during dentition, there were a lot of symptoms that this patient has. Okay, and so diarrhea is also, the diarrhea during dentition is there in these patients. Or the summer complaints of children means what? Diarrhea is during summer as well. So that is why I have taken this sun. And the earlier time we saw this same picture was in antim crude, right? Because antim crude has a lot of aggravation from heat. It may be of the sun or it may be from anywhere. Antim crude cannot tolerate heat. There is a lot of issues. So in the same way, now over here also there are summer complaints of children. They get diarrhea in summer. They get diarrhea during dentition. and they get diarrhea from milk. So when, as soon as the milk is taken, the milk is drunk by the children, it is vomited out in sour curds. It comes out in the form of sour curds, or it is ejected through rectum in white curdled lump. So this is diarrhea. So it is ejected through rectum. It will come out. It will come out in the same form, undigested form, that is white curdled lump. So normally, what should have happened? It should have converted into green or yellow color, because there must be some bilious secretions, right, which come into the small intestine, and they mix with the chyme, and that is how your stools get the color. But over here, white curdled lumps are coming out through the rectum, meaning that the food is not at all digested. The milk, as it came, it's coming out, right? As it was taken, it is coming out. So that is seen. Okay, diarrhea during dentition, summer complaints, and milk will not be tolerated, because now this also has a reason, because milk actually contains two portions, solid and liquid. Okay, the liquid portion, that is the water quantity that is present in milk, is maximum. Okay, there is only little bit of solid content. But what is that solid content? In that solid content, meaning the nutrients that are present in the milk, also the maximum amount of nutrient that is present is actually fats only. So milk is actually also composing a lot of majorly of water, and after water there is something which is present in the second place is fats only. So that cannot be tolerated, because the patient is not able to digest fat only. That is the main issue, right? So these are the three ailments from the causative or the stimulating factors that lead to diarrhea in Calcarea Carb. Then let's go ahead to look at the character of stools. Okay, so the character of stools are of varying character, first of all. So it's not like only this kind of stools will be present. It can be of varying character. The stools can be of varying character. Mostly they're whitish, sour, fetid, and undigested. Okay, I made a horrible mistake by writing undigestible stools, but no, it's undigested. Okay, so as we've seen over here, so undigested might come like that only outside. So mostly whitish, sour, fetid, and undigested food comes out through the anus in the form of stools. Sometimes, to start with, the stools are hard, but then they become absolutely liquid, and they may be even involuntary and foamy also. Then what is the concomitant? The most important thing is that they have ravenous appetite and diarrhea. So this is very, very strange, or not strange actually. This is something that is present along with diarrhea, right? That is what you need to remember, because it is present with diarrhea, so that it is a concomitant symptom. There is ravenous appetite in diarrhea. Not all patients of diarrhea will tell you that they have ravenous appetite. Some might not even like to eat. Some might tell you that I don't even feel like eating. Okay, I feel so weak, I don't even want to eat. But now this patient has ravenous appetite in diarrhea, which is a very, very important symptom. Now, when we examine the patient, okay, a patient comes to you for diarrhea. You first of all ask him many questions. Ask him about the ailments from, like, what caused the diarrhea, or what is the character of stools, and you will also see the other factors, like which we have already studied about Calcarea. How is their appetite? What is it? What do they desire to eat? What they do not like to eat? And what is the tendency of their body? Okay, are they leukophlegmatic? Do they have the leukophlegmatic constitution? You will see all those things as well. Okay, is there this fat flabby baby that is coming to you for his diarrhea? Yeah, you'll see all those things also, and then you also examine that, which is a very important part. Okay, even if you're a homeopath, you need to examine. So examination, you will see that the pit of the stomach becomes swollen. Okay, looks like an inverted saucer. So what is inverted saucer? So normal saucer, मतलब cup and saucer वाला जो saucer होता है, it looks like this, somewhat like this, and you keep your, you keep your cup over here, right? You keep your cup over here, right? This is the saucer. So your stomach will look like inverted saucer. When you examine the patient and you look at him from the side, he's lying down, suppose, on this bed, and you look at it from the side, you'll see that suppose this is his face, okay, this is his neck, and here is his chest. So his stomach will look like inverted saucer. So this is in this way, right? So inverted will be like this. That will be the kind of shape that the stomach will have. Inverted saucer. Okay, and the abdomen is sensitive to pressure. When you try to palpate, okay, when you try to palpate the patient's abdomen, the patient will be sensitive to pressure. He might feel pain when you are pressing due to heavy accumulation of flatus. So there is a heavy accumulation of flatus which will give rise to this pain or sensitiveness to pressure. They won't like you putting pressure on their stomach or abdomen. Okay, so that's about the diarrhea of this remedy, and we need to remember. I hope that it's already very clear to you and you already have memorized it along with me. So there's diarrhea during dentition, during summer complaints. Okay, milk will give rise to diarrhea. It will come out in sour curds either through vomiting, or it might come out through diarrhea ejected through the rectum in white curdled lumps. Then there's character of stools is mostly whitish, sour, fetid, and undigested, not digestible. Who will taste? Blah. Sometimes to start with, they are hard, then they become absolutely liquid, maybe even involuntary or foamy. And ravenous appetite in diarrhea is present, right? An examination we saw that there is inverted saucer kind of shape of the abdomen or the stomach, and the abdomen is sensitive to pressure because there is heavy accumulation of flatus. Because there is not a good digestion that is taking place, right? And whenever there is issues in digestion, you will have the formation of flatus taking place. So that's about the diarrhea related symptoms. Now let's see what happens to the abdomen during the diarrhea or during other complaints as well. What happens to the abdomen? What are the symptoms related to abdomen? They may be present along with diarrhea, or they may be present because of any other disorder or any other issues. But let's see. So the abdomen has these colicky pains about the umbilicus, around the umbilicus. There will be colicky pains, great gurgling in the right side of the abdomen. Okay, in the right side of the abdomen there will be gurgling. Good, you see there is in diarrhea you have this good, that is what they're talking about. Great gurgling in the right side of the abdomen. Swelling and hardness of the mesenteric glands will be there. So we have already seen in scrofula that there is a tendency to affect glands in Calcarea, didn't we see? So if you know that general point that there is tendency to attack glands and cause and swelling of glands, then already know that there will be an action on mesenteric glands as well. So any gland in the body you take, Calcarea Carb will show an action. So that is what we've already learned in the general point. So general points of any remedy, the characteristic points of any remedy hold great importance, because if you learn those few points also, you are in a good position to talk about even the particular organs. Even if you're talking about the stomach or the abdomen or the intestines or anything, okay, you can make some guesses as well, because you know the main general points. You can make guesses. You can already you can tell that there is this hardness of mesenteric glands, because in general only Calcarea has a good action on glands. Then there is ascites, enlargement of liver. Ascites is also a type of enlargement of your abdomen because of accumulation of liquid. And there is enlargement of liver. Pressure and pain in hepatic region means again in the region where liver is present, there will be pressure and pain aggravated by every movement. General emaciation because there is malabsorption. There is no absorption of any nutrient, and then how will any person not be emaciated or be healthy, right? So they have this emaciation although they are fat and flabby. That's what we learned, right? Now, in constipation, there is a very strange, weird symptom, that is, stools need mechanical assistance. What is the meaning of mechanical assistance? It's very simple. You need to actually go down, you need to actually put your hand and try to remove the stool. That is what happens in Calcarea, in aloe, in sanicula, selenium, sepia, silicea. Okay, in all these remedies, aloe, silicea, sanicula especially, selenium, sepia also, that you need mechanical assistance to remove your stools out of your rectum or your anus. Okay, so that because they're not able to come out, that is constipation. So constipation is complicated with hemorrhoidal affections as well. This is very common. Anybody who has constipation sometime or other experiences hemorrhoids because of the great straining that they have to do. Mucous hemorrhoids especially are seen in Calcarea Carb. Okay, so remember at least this much you should remember. And these remedies also, if you can, it's very good. Silica, sanicula, aloe especially, selenium and sepia also. Next we go on to the reproductive system. Okay, so what happens is first we'll talk about males, then we'll come to female as well. So in males it helps in bad effects of masturbation. So many patients can the patients can have have a habit of excessive masturbation. So bad effects will arise because of excessive masturbation, and that can be counteracted by Calcarea if other symptoms also match. If the patient is a Calcarea patient, if the patient has all those general points that we've talked about, then whenever they have these lascivious fancies, it will give rise to desires, right? These lascivious fancies will excite their desires, okay, sexual desires. But even after having the desire, the organ has become too frail for an erection. the penis is not able to get erect, and the emission takes place too soon. Okay, the emission, this is the problem. The emission will take place before time, before it should take place, with consequent weakness of limbs, and there will be weakness of limbs. This will be the concomitant symptom along with it. That is the main problem. So if a patient comes to you with this, you can and you can also have, you will also have to obviously see the other symptoms. It should, they should also match. Then calcarea also rectifies induration of testicles. So again, testicles is actually what? It is only a gland of your body. Okay, it is one of the glands of your body. And induration takes place, it is hardening of the gland, that is testes takes place. Again, this is a common symptom that you can remember. All the glands will be can be affected in calcarea. Inflammation of the prepuce and warty growths on sexual organs. So warty growths, we have talked about warts in the dermatological section. Okay, we've talked about it when we were talking about the skin of calcarea. Now these warts are again also present on the sexual organs, and they smell like old cheese and herring brine. So our Materia Medica is full of different kinds of smells. Okay, horses urine ka smell, old cheese ka smell, herring brine ka smell. Now we obviously haven't smelled all of these, so maybe we should go and do that so that we can understand about these symptoms, right? Okay, next coming to the female related symptoms of Calcarea carb. So when we talk about the female related symptoms, there is nymphomania, meaning excessive sexual desire. The menstruation which takes place in these patients will be too early, it will flow profusely, and will last too long. So first of all, it will take place before its due date. Okay, it will take place before the due date, and it will flow, there will be profuse flow all along, and will last for too long. Okay, last for too long. It will not end very soon, like in 3 to 5 days, which is a normal 3 to 5 days, or to a maximum to 8 days, which was a normal period cycle. But it will grow, it will be it will last till too long. This will take place. And the menstruation is provoked by, meaning even if there is no even if the due date is not there, then also the patient can get menstruation. And what are those things which will provoke it, which will stimulate it? There will be, if the patient does overexertion. Okay, physical overexertion, if the patient does, then that can also give rise to menstruation. And emotions, what is meant by emotions? Any intense emotion, if the patient feels any excitement, mental excitement, meaning any intense emotion that the patient feels, will give rise to menstruation. The patient will start menstruating. So for example, if a patient goes to an amusement park. Okay, if a person who is constitutionally Calcarea carb goes to an amusement park. Okay, since even if a constitutionally Calcarea carb goes to, it is not necessary that this must happen, but it can happen. Okay, if they go to amusement park and they are riding some roller coaster or some game they are playing, and they experience fright to an intense degree. Okay, so fright is again nothing but an emotion, fear is nothing but an emotion. So if they experience it to an intense degree, then that can also make their menstruation start. Okay, so that will also give them periods. Yes, well, that will give them menses. That or else I can give you another example. If somebody dies and then the grief is at its intense degree. Okay, the grief is at an intense degree in the patient's mind and heart, and that can also give rise to menstruation. So anything like that happens, they will start menstruating. So that is how these points come into play. Then there's a profuse flow that takes place in these people. Profuse flow meaning what? Now this profuse flow happens when we say that it is profuse, because it will be so much that it will seem like a hemorrhage, like this lot of blood loss that takes place in these patients at that time. Now these hemorrhages are very often due to abnormal growths in the uterus of fibroid tumor or polypus. So this is a diagram that will show it to you. So normally your uterus is like this, barabar. But when fibroid वगैरह, so these are all fibroids or polyps. So this is actually a polyp. So these are fibroids. Okay, so these overgrowths take place in the uterus, in normal uterus. So normally it should have been like this. No, the lining should be very lean, normal and linear. But now here there are polyps and fibroids growing up. So that is why this has happened, and this can give rise to excessive bleeding. Excessive bleeding. So that can be a cause in these patients. Okay. Then going ahead to talk more about the menstruation. So, whenever you have a patient who comes to you for any menstruation related issues, the questions that you need to ask should always be what happens before, during, and after menses. All these three questions: what happens before menses, what happens during, and what happens after. So, before menses, Calcarea does not feel well. So, Dr. N.M. Chari does not emphasize a lot on what actually happens, but he says that they do not feel well. And during and after menses, they have headache, they have backache, they have pain in the hips, they have their breasts get swollen and pain, there is leukorrhea, mental excitability, and amorous dream. So all these things can take place during and after menses. And then there's leukorrhea that we're talking about. So menses ka part is khatam. Now we're talking about leukorrhea. So in leukorrhea, we know that in Calcarea Carb, Dr. N.M. Choudhuri says that the leukorrhea especially takes place between menses. So between two menses that take place, between two due dates, there will be leukorrhea. So some remedies have leukorrhea just after menses, some will have just before menses. So in that way it goes on. So now Calcarea has especially between menses. And the leukorrhea is thick and yellowish. Now, we've already talked about many things which are yellowish in Calcarea Carb, right? We talked about the pus which is there, okay? We talked about oh no, we didn't talk about it. We're going to talk about the expectoration which will be there in the respiratory related symptoms of Calcarea. That is also yellow. So there are many yellow things in Calcarea. We need to remember that. So there's thick yellow. Even she herself looks pale colored. Okay, pale. That is yellow. So there's thick yellowish color of leukorrhea, and leukorrhea also occurs before puberty and in. So this is now see this point. Leukorrhea may occur before puberty, even before puberty, and even in infants. Isn't this very, very strange and characteristic? So, leukorrhea is occurring in infants. Leukorrhea is occurring before puberty. Alright, between menses. So, this you should remember. It occurs before menses, thick yellow, before puberty, and in infants also. So, Calcarea Carb baby may also you can write this point. You know, when we are talking about Calcarea Carb baby, you can write this point that they have leukorrhea in infants also. Then suppression of menses leads to lung complications. See, if a patient has some irregular menstruation and the doctor directly goes and suppresses the menses through some tablets or something, or the patient himself does it, or some other natural reason also maybe lead to suppression of menses, right? Like we've seen that in pulsatilla, the menses get suppressed by the feet getting wet, right? The wetting of the feet will suppress their menses. So there can be any natural cause also, or any you take any pills or something and you suppress your menses, that will lead to lung complications. So some lung related disease will take place if you suppress your menses. Now what Dr. N.M. Choudhuri says is these issues, lung complications, can be uh, easily avoided by the timely administration of the deep acting Calcarea Carb. So if you give this deep acting Calcarea Carb, you can avoid these lung complications. If at this stage only the patient takes Calcarea Carb, then it will not go ahead, right? Okay. So then we talk about anemia in young girls. Young patients come to you and you see that their face is pale and their hemoglobin is very low. So that is also an indication. Okay, they may look apparently healthy, but it is really plethora more than. So they will be like this, fat, chubby, and you will see that yeah, itna to hai, but then why is the patient like? So you'll find this anemia in this patient also. So even if they look robust, even if they look hatta katta and they look very healthy, even if they look as if they are beaming with health, but on examination, but on to doing their blood tests, it is found that they are sadly lacking in RBCs. So that is how there is anemia in young girls in Calcarea Carb. Obviously, you're not going to prescribe Calcarea only when you see that these are robust and they also have anemia. So give Calcarea Carb. No, homeopathy doesn't work that way. You will have to take the whole case, and as I've told you, you will have to see the mind related symptoms, the physical general related symptoms, physical particular related symptoms, and then finally make a totality and come to one remedy. And if it's Calcarea Carb, then obviously that will help the patient's anemia as well. It will help treat the anemia as well. Okay, so that's all for this video actually. So let's now just revise whatever we learned. Okay, so when we started about talking, when we started when we started this video, we started about talking about the eye related symptoms, in which we talked about the keratitis, right? Eye related symptoms, in which we talked about the keratitis, eye, nose, ear actually, right? So see, we talked about keratitis, and I showed you these diagrams. I hope you remember when you see these diagrams the whole points also. There's photophobia, there's aggravation by candlelight, morning agitation, numerous vessel pus is also there. Okay, conjunctiva is inflamed, lids get swollen, cataract, opacification of lens will be there, and this opacification means thickening. Now this thickening you also see in ear and nose. In ear there will be thickening of tympan, wings of nose are thickened. In ear also there will be purulent arterial discharge, and here also there will be purulent discharge, offensive discharge. The ulceration will be there, ulceration in cornea also was there. Defective hearing, perversion of hearing will be there. They will not hear any normal. ऐसा नहीं कि deaf हो गए पर कुछ और ही सुनाई दे रहा है. Bringing, buzzing, singing, hissing, thundering, anything. A polypus will be there here also, here also. That's what we learned in the eye, ear and nose related symptoms, right? So I think there's no need to write about it. So that's what we learned. Then we went on to learn about the stomach and abdomen related symptoms, in which we talked about especially the tendency to diarrhea that this remedy has, right? The tendency that they have for diarrhea. Then we talked about the diarrhea itself. Why do they have diarrhea? So we talked about the very important point that there is malabsorption in this remedy. This malabsorption itself gives rise to diarrhea because fat is not getting absorbed, right? And then we talked about the points related to diarrhea, that is what is the ailments from. So one thing that led to the diarrhea was the dentition related issues, right? The dentition related issues was the one of the problems. Then the other problems was summer, right? Then the third problem was milk, right? These were the ailments from that we talked about. Then we also talked about how the stools are. The stools will be actually varying in a character, but they can be white, they can be sour, they are undigested, right? They are undigested. And then they can be hard at the start and then become absolutely liquid afterwards. That can also be there, right? They can be involuntary foamy. But the important point was there is ravenous appetite along with diarrhea, isn't it? And when you examine the patient, you will find two important things, right? First, that there will be inverted saucer shaped stomach, and then second, that there will be the abdomen which will be sensitive to pressure. And that will be because of the accumulation of flatus, right? Then we went ahead to talk about the abdomen related symptoms. The abdomen there will be gurgling, obviously because there is diarrhea. There will be colicky pains around the umbilicus, right? Around the umbilicus there will be colicky pains. Then there will be ascites, there will be enlargement of the liver, ascites, liver will get enlarged. And then there will be mesenteric glands are there, no? These mesenteric glands will get inflamed. That is swollen. And indurated means hard. Induration means hardened. Then there will be constipation. We talked about constipation. In constipation, the most important point was that the stools will need mechanical assistance. And I hope you can remember the another remedies which had the same thing. That was aloe. The another remedy was sanicula, silicea, sepia, and selenium. So see, many S are there, right? Okay, then constipation also gives rise to hemorrhoids. Then we started to talk about the reproductive system related symptoms, in which first of all we talked about the male and then we talked about the female. Okay, in the male we see that there is bad effects of masturbation will be contracted by this remedy. Then if there is desire, but the desire, even if there is desire, the organ is very weak. Okay, the organ will not get erected and there will be no emission taking place on the right time. It will take place before, or it will take place too soon. That is what Dr. N.M. Choudhuri says in his own words. And weakness of limbs will be there along with it. Then we talked about again the glandular action of this remedy, that is the testicles will get indurated, that is hardened. Inflammation of prepuce will be there, warts will be there on the sexual organs. Okay, then we talked about the smelling, like that will smell, these will smell like old cheese and herring brine. Okay, then we went ahead to talk about the female related symptoms. In the female related symptoms, we talked about the nymphomania first of all, which is excessive sexual desire, and then we talked about the menstruation, a very important point. Okay, menstruation was provoked by what? Provoked by, first by overexertion and also by emotions. The menstruation is too early, too profuse, and lasts too long, isn't it? And then why is it too profuse? It may be due to fibroids in uterus. Yeah, fibroids or polyps in uterus, right? Yeah. After that, we talked about the symptoms before and after menstruation. Before menstruation does not, Dr. N.M. Choudhuri does not tell us a lot about it. He tells us that the patient does not feel well. And then after menstruation and during menstruation, there was a list of things that happen, right? The patient will have may have headache, backache, hips pain, breast pain, and get swollen. Leukorrhea can also be there during and after menses also. Then there is mental excitability, etc. Okay, and then when we talked about leukorrhea, a very important point we talked about, right? That there is leukorrhea in infants also, or before puberty also. Leukorrhea is thick and yellowish in color. Yeah, and it is especially seen between menses. Then suppression of menses will lead to lung complications, lung related issues, right? Anemia, we talked about. The last point of this video was anemia. So anemia is seen especially in young girls. So even if they look fat, flabby, robust, very healthy, when you examine their blood, it may be lacking in RBCs. That's what we talked about in this video, and I hope you learnt a lot. But there's still more remaining about Calcarea, about the respiratory related symptoms of Calcarea, and much more to discuss. So let's meet in the next, that is the part 3 of Calcarea Carb from Dr. N.M. Choudhury's Materia Medica. Until then, I hope you read Dr. N.M. Choudhury's Materia Medica, and I hope you enjoy it also. Okay, so bye bye.